You're welcome back. This is Firecrackers. Wherever you're watching from around the world, we are live from our studios here in Lagos, Nigeria. Let's begin the conversation now in the U.S. as we get talking about issues of racism and, of course, police brutality, with close reference to the very latest killing in the U.S. Joining me live tonight on the program is a board member of the African Leaders Council, Orlando, Ehimen Sedenu. He joins us live from Orlando, Florida. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Ehimen. We also have an international affairs analyst and a regular on the show tonight, Somto Ochuku Ikejiofo, live for us from Texas in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through on the program tonight. Well, where do we begin this conversation from? Let's say ladies first, but Somto, maybe I'll begin with you as a result of that. What exactly is playing out in the U.S. Very recently with these issues of killings, with the issue of police brutality?
I think it was 2 weeks ago, or this past month, it's just been. The state of Minnesota is having a lot of issues right now. There was also another killing this morning, reported this morning in Kenosha. Daunte Wright was just stopped for no, I'm sorry, there was no reason to have stopped him. It was unnecessary, it was mundane. We're in a pandemic, it should have not happened to even begin with. And secondly, there were 3 police officers who stopped him, if you watch the video. There was one on the other side, there was one on the side of the lady of Kim Potter. I want to name her because, you know, we cannot let these people live in privacy. We have to know their names, we have to say their names. So her killing of Daunte Wright was unnecessary and uncalled for. You cannot tell me a 26-year veteran cannot tell the difference between a gun and a taser. Come on. My 10-year-old nephew can do that. Like that's not true. I'm just appalled by the whole situation. The first time the police chief claimed that it was a mistake. When he said that, my face dropped. I nearly broke my computer because I was so furious about at that comment. And the very next day he resigned. I was so angry about that because you cannot just resign and walk away from a situation in which you were the leader, right? Heaven the head that wears the crown. There is a crisis. You cannot run away from the crisis. True leaders stay in a crisis and ride a crisis through.
All right, Mr. E, let's join you in this conversation.
Yeah.
During my research,
I think the lady said it very well and very passionately.
I read the names of black people who have been killed in the U.S. from 27-year-old Rachel Banks to 41-year-old Daniel Prude, and then 46-year-old George Floyd, and then of course we do have 20-year-old Daunte Wright, who was also just killed very recently. I mean, the names and the list is endless. But do you wake up sometimes as an African American with the thought that it could have been you, or do you wake up sometimes with the thought that you just could be next?
That's a great question. I'll put it like this. I had a cousin come from Canada, and he was going to drive down to Florida. I had to make sure that he took the right route to avoid any kind of mistaken situation or any kind of tragedy. I told him what cities to stop in, what cities he should drive by, and be very careful. That's the kind of awareness that one has to have. You have to know the history of the place you're in, the history of how it's being policed, the difference in laws from state to state, the political makeup of counties that you might be in. These are things that the average person, if you're not aware, God forbid, you end up a statistic. So to answer your question, yeah, I wouldn't call it fear. I would call it vigilance. There's a heightened vigilance that one must have in this environment.
I recall it fear. People are legitimately afraid to go outside. I remember when George Floyd died, I couldn't sleep for about 2 weeks. It was actually very traumatic. It was so bad that when his body came to Houston, I actually went to the viewing. I had left right before the governor had arrived. But like, yes, there is a legitimate fear. I also fear for my dad when he's going outside at night to take a jog because my dad is very healthy. I have to actively tell him, don't go outside. It's 8 p.m. Do not go outside. We literally had to have this argument. My dad had to buy a treadmill and put it in the garage because of that. So yes, there is an actual fear of being black in America. There is a fear of that.
I think, if I may jump in, I noticed that you said you embraced that word fear, and you know, there are people that will agree with that. But from my position as a man, as a leader in the community, I would encourage family men and those who are really concerned about their community to be vigilant and not be fearful. When you're vigilant, you take fear and you try to use wisdom, you try to gather information, and you use that to process and understand your environment so you can act accordingly. So this conversation actually crosses many topics, everything from professionalism in the police force to gun control and racism. So there's a lot to unpack.
That's true.
Now,
Kelly?
according to figures, more African Americans are imprisoned. Blacks are more likely to get fatally shot. Also, blacks are arrested at a higher rate for drug abuse. Well, Mr. E, help us understand and make sense of this reality. Why is that so?
Please, I did not hear your question. Could you repeat that?
All right, I may need to go over that question again. I'm not sure there's a bridge between us now, but the question is that according to figures, according to statistics, more African Americans are imprisoned. More African Americans are more likely to get fatally shot. More African Americans are arrested at a higher rate for drug abuse. Help us make sense of this very sad and terrible reality.
That's a very interesting question. For you said specifically for drug abuse.
So we believe there's more to it.
I just want you to realize that sometimes in the history of the police force, drugs have been planted on people, and people have been arrested in error, innocent people. So that's happened here and is documented. So it's not, that statistic has a problem because it's actually not the whole story. So, but there is a problem. To answer your question, there is a problem, and it's within our community, and it's how we relate to the community that we find ourselves in. So that goes to the larger racial problem, how the society is constructed, how the police. Why is it that their approach in communities with people of color, people that are darker skinned, they seem to forget how to just be a human being and police with some sense of humanity. Instead, they forget they are not trained. They police in neighborhoods that they don't belong in and they don't understand. They don't have the ability to communicate in a way that people in those communities understand and embrace. And then there's not enough representation of people that are black in the police force. So all of these problems create this kind of situations we find ourselves in. So that the police, to be honest, they forget about their tactical training and they use brute force. They forget about any way of communication, and they just seem to just be so aggressive, almost for no reason, almost purposefully, almost by design. And it's something that I know Mr. Jufo can speak to that.
We have some interferences.
Yeah, so I concur with you on some aspects, but on some no.
On the conversation,
statistics do not lie. The statistics, it is what it is. Black people are more pulled over more. Black people are short.
Police brutality in the US at the moment. Somto, I can see that you definitely want to have a lot to say, but just a moment, let's take a breather. We'll come back and continue the conversation. This is Firecrackers, the very sad reality in the US at the moment, the issue of racism, the issue of police brutality, especially amongst the African American and of course Asian Americans, which we haven't captured just yet. We're back in just a moment. Stay with us.
People understand now. It's not enough to be angry. You have to vote. You have to translate that into action.
There needs to be consequence for that action, and it needs to be taught that that won't happen no more. Enough is enough.
So there you go. This is Firecrackers. Thanks for staying with us. We are on the issue of racism and police brutality in the US. The visuals there, some of them are really very sad. I Can't Breathe, which became a trend globally. It sparked protests not just in the US but across many countries of the world. Well, tonight we shed light on these issues as I'm joined by Somto Otukwu, an international affairs analyst from Texas in the US. And of course, I also have Ehimen Sedenu live for us, Orlando, Florida, a board member of the African Leaders Council. Somto, let's begin with you, because you are going to respond to the question of this very sad and terrible reality of why, according to figures, according to statistics, why African Americans are more imprisoned, why blacks are more likely to get shot, and the fact that why blacks are arrested the more or a higher rate about issues of drug abuse. Somto.
He said there is a broader issue with it. There is the racism concept of it, but there's also the criminalization of black and brown bodies. So, for instance, let me just give a local example. This kid, the kid that was in Stranger Things, that's a Netflix series, right? He was this young black kid. Recently, he did a photo shoot on one of the top magazines, on fashion magazines, and someone made a comment on Twitter saying, "Oh my God, we've watched him grow. Right now, people watch him be a threat." And it went viral because that's exactly the fear people of color have right now. You know, we watch these young actors grow, and they end up becoming threats to society. So from the broader issue, people do view us as a threat most of the time. You know, for instance, when you're walking on the street, it can be something very subtle. Like there was a time someone was walking on the street, she made a comment about and this was a congresswoman I respected. I used to work for her. She made a comment about how she was walking on the street one of the days, and some lady with her $200 handbag, like had to hug her handbag because, you know, she had seen this black lady jogging and things like that. So if someone who is well respected and elected can go through that, I mean, what do you think is going to happen to a regular person like me? You know? So there is that issue of people viewing us as a threat, seeing us as less than. That's the societal issue in general. But when it comes to policing, there's always been an issue with people of color. And for instance, there was also the kid killed in Chicago. His hands were empty. People yes, it can be seen as a justified use of force if you look broadly at the picture and things and, you know, fill in the gaps yourself, but no. His hands were empty at the time of his death. So again, there have been instances of videos of white people actually threatening to kill cops, threatening to beat cops up, threatening to punch cops. These white people don't get shot, they don't get killed, they don't get anything. But black people,
let me ask this question as well. So,
I'm just so curious
does that tell that maybe racism is actually even worse in the US than across Europe?
Ooh, I wouldn't say that. It's just, oh, come on. Kelly, that was a good question. Okay, so it depends. I'm not going to say it's actually worse. I want to say they're all on the same spectrum. It's just that the British racism can be figured, it's within. Like when I say within, it's not polite to be racist, so they try to do all this, their passive-aggressive racism. You know, oh, your hair is so thin and so nice. Your skin is nice, you speak better, things like that. I wouldn't say it's different. I would say they're almost all the same. In the northern countries, it's very, 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 there is racism much very alive in the northern countries. But in the Americas, it's just out in your face, you know? It's just out in your face. That's the only difference.
All right, I'd like Ehimen to also respond to that question.
Yeah, the racism in America is institutionalized. So what that means is in the 60s, you're not allowed to go to school with other white kids in the same school. What that means is you have to wait for the Civil Rights Act to pass before you can buy a house in a neighborhood that where white people are. What that means is you can't get a loan to go to school, to buy a house, to start a business, or if you get a loan, it's by a loan shark who's charging you interest rates that's double, triple what's normal for everybody else. And they'll justify why they're doing it. But it's obviously an unfair practice. So there's a way that the other community wants to treat us and get away with it. So it goes into the legal system, it goes into the policing, right? So when the police puts a chokehold on Eric Garner for 15 seconds, an illegal tactic that he wasn't trained to use, does he get convicted? No. As a matter of fact, less than 1% of police are convicted with all these shootings that has happened, all these killings that has happened. Less than 1%. Just think about that. That means they can do anything, literally anything. They actually shot somebody. They shot a 17-year-old kid, Laquan McDonald, in Chicago, 16 times, unarmed. Yes. Nothing happened. That's the America that the black people are experiencing. They see this, and what? How should we react? Should we be in fear? Should we be vigilant? It's all of these things. It's both. It's really both. But I'm a proponent that we need to learn about the history and know that it won't stop until we actively do something about it.
Yes, we'll come to the protests, which we've seen a lot of protests in the US and of course across Europe and many nations of the world in just a moment. But let's shift our attention to the trial of Derek Chauvin about the killing of George Floyd. What do you make of what is playing out right now as regards this trial? Mr. E?
To be honest with you, it's heartbreaking. If I see it on TV, I turn my head and I want to go somewhere else. It's very heavy on the heart. I'll just be honest with you. I have 3 daughters. I have a wife, thank God. You know, I don't know if they worry about me. You know, I'm luckily I live in a place that's not so not like New York or those big cities. But if I did live in those places, the vibe is different. The policing is different, and they'll probably be very worried about me when I leave the house. So when I watch that, I see that could be me. I see that could be my uncle. That could be my father. That could be someone in my family. And so how you comport yourself in public is very important. You know, how you the funny thing is Chauvin and I have to say his name, but every time I think about him, George Floyd, it's so sad because they actually knew each other.
Right, that was the shocking part. Yes.
So wow. Because he had the police, you know, that is in his heart. So now that he has the police uniform on, he feels that that's his cover to now exercise his abuse of another fellow human being who he probably already had an issue with. Think about it. I mean, this thing is very deep, and there's a lot to be uncovered. Now, imagine after going through this trial that this guy gets away scot-free. Just imagine. Woo! This country will burn down, I'm telling you. It will burn down. Go ahead, please.
So to talk about the trial, so unfortunately I have to watch the trial because, you know, it's my people, my community needs me to watch the trial so I can give them feedback and talk to them about it. It's very disheartening, it's very sad, it's traumatic. I promise you, the emotions I go through every day, having to rewatch that video, relive the shooting, as well as look at more shootings coming up. It's it's a lot. It's a lot to take. I keep tweeting about how I don't wish this on anybody. I don't wish this on my white friends. I don't wish this on anybody at all, because I have to leave being a black person in America and being a political animal, because I have to differentiate myself, right? I have to compartmentalize my brain when I watch the trial. Is it going great? I think the prosecutors have done their job. The defense, not so much. I'm not a fan of the defense attorney. Everyone knows that on Twitter. I'm not a fan of him. The judge in himself, that's comment for another day. But I think the prosecution have done their job. Closing statements begin tomorrow. I'm hoping, I'm praying that there's a guilty verdict. Because if there is none, everyone will be sad, everyone will be disappointed. I will be sad and disappointed. People will protest again, and peacefully protest, of course. But we need a guilty verdict at this point. At this point, society needs a guilty verdict, because the entire world came out. People protested all over the world. I don't think people understand the concept of that. So the society at large needs, or we need that guilty verdict. No pressure to the jury, no pressure at all. But yes, society needs that, because we need some form of justice. We need closure. I went to see his body. I know I know how the entire city mourned. The whole city of Houston came to that church. We all convened on that church to see the body. We needed to see it for ourselves, you know? So it affected the society at large. It affected everyone. And I mean, it could have, like he said, it could be anybody we know. It could be my brothers. It could be my dad. It could be John. It could be Louis. It could be anyone I know. And I worry about all my male friends all the time. I do. Because when I worry a lot, I try to tell them to dress a certain way. I try to tell them to behave a certain way, because I worry. I really worry a lot about them. Because I cannot go through that again. I cannot go through that. I cannot keep going through this. It's only so much I can take, right?
Also, Mr. G4, you know, I know we focus, the face of this has become the black man, but
absolutely,
there are numerous cases of women,
yes,
you know, that through the years have experienced the same thing. Black men, whatever reason, seem like we're the poster child, but let's not forget about those women as well. And absolutely, you know, this is our sisters, this is our aunts, you know, yes, this is our mothers. This is trauma being done to the community that we live in by people that really don't live in the community or understand us. So at some point, you feel targeted. Take me, for example. I live in Florida. It's a warm climate. Believe it or not, if it drops to maybe 65, I might put on a hoodie. A white guy may, because of his body type and because of his physiology, it won't get cold like me. Some of them will, but not everybody. So imagine seeing me with a hoodie in this climate, him, he may wonder, like, this guy is suspicious. And for that reason alone, he can pull over to the side and start engaging me. And if I'm hungry and my blood sugar is low that day and I'm very cranky, I'm not behaving in a way that he determines is the right behavior for a suspicious person, just like that. Enter the car, enter moto, like this. We're taking you for questioning. Next thing you know, spinal cord injury. That's what happened to someone in police custody the other day. Spinal cord injury under police custody just from transporting him, and a day later the guy. Simple, avoidable things like this is what I'm saying.
Because we are pressed for time. Because we are pressed for time, and we have to wind down on our conversation now with you. It's really very terrible. It's such a sad reality. I mean, for those of us here, far away from America, but we see the videos, we've been following the trial and all of that. I need to ask this question because both of you are Nigerians, and for Nigerians here, the question will be, why not come back home? Is that an option at all for any of you at this point?
This one, Mr. G4. At home, my cousin in Agege is dealing with SARS. Okay? So it's not sweet anywhere. It's police abuse of power. It's a civic problem. You see, it's the people that we entrust to and give out, and we vote for, and we say, you know what, you're in these positions. They're the ones abusing us because of what? Lack of training, lack of understanding, lack of empathy. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen. Yeah, I'd love to come home. You know, I'd love to come home. I come home every time I can, but it's not any better. I mean, yeah, I have lights, good. Light in Nigeria, what's going on with that? It's not, I can't depend on that. Everyone I talk to back home, they're asking me, they're telling me, oh, it's dark. Oh, the gen. Oh, I have to buy fuel. And then if you ask the guy, if you watch the news about what's going on with the contracts of these companies that are supposed to be managing electricity, you won't get a straight answer. Am I lying?
No.
And how many years is it?
Tell me something. What do you think? Coming home, is it an option for you?
One word, and I'm done. It's accountability. It's not there. It's not in Nigeria. It's not here either. So when we see accountability, then I'll start being. You may see me in Nigeria. Here, I'm just trying to do what I have to do.
What's your take on this? What's your position?
Coming back, yes, I'm considering it actually. There's an election coming up in 2023. I'm actually considering it because we have to fix our country. We cannot leave it for the generations unborn. We have to fix our country. I'm actually considering it very, very, very much. But the same problem, of course, policing everywhere has an issue. Because guess what? The Nigerian police were trained by the British police. And guess what? The British police also has issues too. So policing in general has problem. We have to do a comprehensive police reform. But yes, coming to Nigeria, it's happening. Brace yourself now.
Well, you're watching Firecrackers. Well, we're having really smart and global conversations about the state of policing, well, not just in the US, but across many nations of the world.